The Battle of Midway was a decisive naval battle fought from June 4th to 7th, 1942. It occurred just 6 months after Japan's attack on Pearl Harbor. Located in the North Pacific Ocean, Midway Atoll was a strategic U.S. base approximately 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii. Japan sought to capture Midway to extend their defensive perimeter and potentially lure the U.S. fleet into a trap. The battle took place in early June 1942, when Japanese forces under Admiral Yamamoto attempted to seize Midway Atoll. Japan's objectives included capturing the atoll, extending their defensive line, and drawing out and destroying American carriers to complete what they had begun at Pearl Harbor. The Battle of Midway would prove to be one of the most significant naval engagements of World War II and a crucial turning point in the Pacific theater.
The strategic importance of Midway Atoll stemmed from its pivotal location in the Pacific Ocean. Midway consisted of 2 small islands, but held tremendous strategic value due to its position approximately 1,300 miles northwest of Hawaii. For Japan, capturing Midway would provide a launching point for potential operations against Hawaii and secure their eastern defensive perimeter. Admiral Yamamoto also hoped to use Midway as bait to lure the remaining American carriers into a decisive battle where they could be destroyed. For the United States, Midway served as a vital outpost for reconnaissance and as an early warning station to protect Hawaii. As a forward base, Midway would also become essential for future American offensive operations across the Central Pacific. Control of this tiny atoll would significantly influence the ability to project naval power across the Central Pacific. In the broader context of the Pacific War, Midway represented the first major naval confrontation after Pearl Harbor. Whoever controlled Midway would gain decisive advantages in naval mobility and the ability to conduct offensive operations. The island would also serve as a critical decision point in determining the future island-hopping strategy in the Pacific theater. As both the Japanese and American naval commands recognized, Midway's strategic location made it worth risking major fleet assets to control. The Battle of Midway began in the early morning hours of June 4, 1942. At 4:30 a.m., Vice Admiral Chuichi Nagumo's 1st Carrier Striking Force launched the first wave of attack against Midway Island. By 5:45 a.m., 108 Japanese aircraft, including bombers, dive bombers, and fighters, were approaching Midway. At 6:30 a.m., the Japanese force began bombing Midway's installations, causing significant damage to the base facilities. American shore-based aircraft from Midway launched a counterattack at 7 a.m. Despite their courage, they suffered heavy losses without inflicting significant damage on the Japanese carriers. At 7:15 a.m., Admiral Nagumo received reports from scout planes indicating the presence of American naval forces. This presented Nagumo with a critical decision that would ultimately change the course of the battle. Nagumo had to decide whether to arm his reserve aircraft for a second strike on Midway or prepare them for an attack against the newly detected American ships. He initially ordered his aircraft to be armed with land attack weapons for a second strike on Midway. When he received the reports of American ships, he changed his orders, requiring the ordnance to be swapped out again. This moment of indecision left his carriers extremely vulnerable, with armed aircraft and ordnance scattered across their flight decks, unable to quickly launch or be stowed below. This critical delay would prove costly, setting the stage for the decisive American carrier strike that would follow. The final stages of the Battle of Midway continued from June 4th through June 7th, 1942. As the battle progressed, the remaining Japanese forces began retreating westward toward Japan. During this withdrawal phase, American aircraft from Midway and the remaining U.S. carriers launched attacks against the retreating Japanese fleet. The Japanese heavy cruiser Mikuma was sunk during these attacks, while several other vessels, including the cruiser Mogami, sustained significant damage. Admiral Yamamoto initially considered continuing the operation with his remaining surface forces. However, he ultimately decided to withdraw completely, recognizing that without carrier air power, his forces were too vulnerable to American air attacks. By June 7th, the remaining Japanese forces had completely withdrawn from the Midway area, bringing the battle to its conclusion. The Battle of Midway resulted in a decisive American victory with dramatically asymmetrical losses. Looking at ship losses, Japan lost 4 fleet carriers: Akagi, Kaga, Soryu, and Hiryu, as well as 1 heavy cruiser. By comparison, the United States lost 1 fleet carrier, the USS Yorktown, and 1 destroyer, the USS Hammond. The loss of 4 carriers in a single battle was unprecedented and devastating for the Japanese naval forces. In terms of aircraft, Japan lost 248 planes, while the United States lost 150. The human cost was also disproportionate. Japan lost approximately 3,057 personnel, while American casualties numbered 307. Particularly devastating for Japan was the loss of experienced pilots, many of whom had been flying since the early days of the war. These veteran airmen represented years of combat experience that could not be quickly replaced. This asymmetrical outcome represented a catastrophic defeat for the Imperial Japanese Navy, which had previously seemed invincible in Pacific operations. Prior to Midway, the Japanese and American naval forces were considered relatively balanced in the Pacific theater. After Midway, this balance dramatically shifted in favor of the United States, altering the course of the Pacific War.
The Battle of Midway is widely regarded as the turning point of the Pacific War. It halted Japanese expansion in the Pacific and shifted the strategic initiative to the United States. After Midway, the momentum of the war fundamentally changed in favor of American forces. Japan's loss of 4 fleet carriers and experienced air crews created a deficit they could never overcome. This pivotal battle transformed Japan's position from offensive expansion to forced defensive posture. While the road to victory remained long and difficult, after Midway, the United States began its island-hopping campaign toward the Japanese homeland. Historians consider Midway one of the most decisive battles in naval history and a defining moment of World War II. The Battle of Midway permanently altered the balance of naval power in the Pacific, setting the stage for the eventual Allied victory.